Next on the 5 o'clock report.
I just saw a fireball and then it was just gone.
We are all hurting.
It's just dangerous and hard to work in.
Where was the focus of that helicopter crew?
It was the only place I thought I should be right now. We just wanted to be here with each other.
Now, let's go to the newsroom.
D.C. disaster. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Mark Webster.
I just saw a fireball and then it was just gone. They hit the river.
Recovery efforts continue in the Potomac River, scene of last night's deadly mid-air collision between an American Airlines commuter jet on final approach to Reagan National Airport with 64 souls aboard and a U.S. Army UH-60 Black Hawk helicopter on a night training flight with a crew of 3.
This is devastating. We are all hurting.
That's American Airlines CEO Robert Isom. Everything appeared routine in the busy air corridor before the disaster. This man was texting with his wife, one of the passengers.
Landing in 20 minutes, the rest of my text did not get delivered. That's when I realized something might be up. Despite daunting conditions, divers have recovered about half of the victims from 3 debris fields in the icy river.
The water that we're operating in is about 8 feet deep. There is wind. There is pieces of ice out there. It's just dangerous and hard to work in.
Flight 5342 was a Bombardier CRJ-701 jet inbound from Wichita, Kansas. The crash investigation will center on several unanswered questions. Transportation reporter Chris Van Cleve.
Why was that helicopter where it was when this collision happened? Those helicopters flying around Washington Reagan DCA is supposed to be at 200 feet or lower. It appears this collision happened above that.
Veteran airline pilot and former NTSB chair Robert Sumwalt.
I've landed on that runway many times. You're in the turn. You're looking to line up with that runway. You're not looking out here for other traffic at that point. Now, the real question is, where was the focus of that helicopter crew?
New Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the soldiers on that chopper were, quote, a fairly experienced crew. 14 of the victims were members of the figure skating community, returning from the 2025 U.S. Figure Skating Championships in Wichita. 6 of them were from Boston, where skaters gathered, including famed U.S. Olympian Nancy Kerrigan.
It was the only place I thought I should be right now. We just wanted to be here with each other.
The last major crash of an American airliner was almost 16 years ago in the Buffalo suburb of Clarence Center. Well, a slew of confirmation hearings in the U.S. Senate today, some of them among President Trump's more controversial cabinet picks. That includes Kash Patel for FBI director.
The priority of the FBI, if I'm confirmed, will be to ensure that our communities are protected and safeguarded and our children have parks to play in and not needles to walk over.
Ranking Democrat Dick Durbin.
Our nation needs an FBI director who understands the gravity of this mission and is ready on day one, not someone who is consumed by his own personal political grievances.
Tulsi Gabbard's credentials to head up national intelligence were questioned by members of the Senate committee, including ranking member Mark Warner of Virginia.
You blame NATO for Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine. You rejected the conclusion that Assad used chemical weapons in Syria. Instead, you blame the United States for supporting terrorist groups in Syria.
Gabbard says as DNI, she'd have a clean slate come day one.
I'll begin by leading by example, checking my own personal views at the door, and committing to delivering intelligence that is collected, analyzed, and reported without bias, prejudice, or political influence.
Day 2 of the hearing for Health and Human Services Secretary nominee Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who left lawmakers with these promises.
We will make sure our tax dollars support healthy foods. It will scrutinize the chemical additives to our food supply. We'll remove the financial conflicts of interest from the agencies. We'll create an honest, unbiased, science-driven HHS.
Also on the Senate slate today, a hearing for Daniel Driscoll for Secretary of the Army and New York's Elise Stefanik to be America's UN ambassador. More hostages released today by Iran-backed terror group Hamas, including female Israeli soldier Agam Berger.
Berger, looking pale and dressed in a military uniform, was handed to the Red Cross and then transferred to Israeli soldiers. She was one of 5 female Israeli soldiers Hamas kidnapped from an army base near Gaza.
That's Linda Gradstein in Jerusalem. Before releasing them, Hamas paraded Berger and other hostages through a mob, displaying them on stage, a move that prompted Israel to delay releasing the prisoners promised in exchange for those hostages until guarantees were secured that the scene won't be repeated in any further hostage releases. keeping up with maintenance is important, especially if you happen to be in space.
2 astronauts out on a spacewalk doing maintenance at the International Space Station. Suni Williams and Butch Wilmore. They've been stuck at the station since last year when the Boeing Starliner that took them had technical issues and couldn't take them home.
That's Fox correspondent Dave Anthony. Still to come on the 5 o'clock report, a messy end coming to the work week, for some of us at least. Pennsylvania's governor talking energy plans and previewing a weekend to remember.
Some messy weather is ahead. Rain, freezing rain, sleet, and snow over the next 18 hours. Not great amounts, but enough to impact travel in places and at times. Overnight, it's mainly cloudy. Areas of rain and pockets of freezing rain spreading into portions of Pennsylvania. For your Friday, periods of rain, pockets of freezing rain, sleet, and snow. High temps, 30s and low 40s. Best chance for any snow accumulation on Friday will come late in the day, near and north of the Thruway. Watch for some glazing of ice across parts of the southern Finger Lakes and the eastern Twin Tiers in particular.
All right, thank you very much, Kevin. And checking the stories now, making news where you live across New York and Pennsylvania. As he alluded to, some sloppy weather is ahead. Just how sloppy depends on where you are, of course. WIVB meteorologist Mike Syka in Buffalo says while some around that area will get just a cold rain tomorrow morning, others might get more than that.
There are going to be a few pockets potentially of some icing taking place, a wintry mix, maybe some sleet or freezing rain, especially in deeper interior valleys, inland from the lake near the Pennsylvania line, and maybe even to the northeast of the metro.
Well, as we heard from Kevin, he's following that whole messy weather system. We'll check in again with him before this newscast is through to get all the details. The images flooding screens today from the tragic mid-air crash that claimed 67 lives in Washington, D.C. have been especially disturbing for area families who were impacted by another air tragedy 16 years ago. America's last major air crash happened in 2008 when Colgate Airways Flight 3407 crashed on approach to Buffalo Niagara International Airport in icing conditions, claiming the lives of 49 people, including Robin Tolsma's husband, Darren. She knows what lays ahead for the D.C. crash victims' families.
Time and a lot of time before you start to feel like yourself again. Those people are flying on numbness right now. And then to have to watch it over and over and over again on social media and the newscast, way more immediate than Flight 3407 was.
She spoke with WKBW. The 3407 crash united victims' families who lobbied for more stringent pilot training after an investigation found that Colgan's relatively inexperienced flight crew had insufficient training for the icing conditions that led to that crash. Ahead of an upcoming budget address, Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro today outlined plans for major energy projects in the Commonwealth.
We want to be more competitive. We want to create more energy sources, more jobs, and more freedom all across Pennsylvania. We've set the table of progress here in our Commonwealth, and we are ready to get big things done.
Among the specifics the Democrat says will fast-track big energy projects is by offering hundreds of millions of dollars in tax breaks for projects that provide electricity to the grid and produce hydrogen. He also announced the creation of what will be called the Pennsylvania Reliable Energy Siting and Electric Transition Board. That's aimed at streamlining permitting and support for new energy projects. He says PA is just one of 12 states that doesn't have such an entity to fast-track siting decisions for those sorts of projects. Pennsylvania is the nation's second largest natural gas producing state. The New York State legislature is advancing 5 bills that promote, protect, and expand abortion. Jason McGuire with New York Families.
Right now, one of the bills that the Senate passed would actually allow for a new training program in New York for abortionists. And they specifically indicated this would not just be for New York abortionists, but we would bring people from across the country to be trained in how to bring abortion back to their places in the country.
McGuire says the more pro-life the federal government gets, the more pro-abortion New York State becomes. And more than 8,000 Pennsylvanians are going to be getting some letters this week. Good news, too, letting them know they've got a check on the way from the state.
It's part of the Pennsylvania Money Match Program, which was unanimously approved by the PA General Assembly and signed by Governor Josh Shapiro last year. For the first time ever, Pennsylvania residents who have unclaimed property will receive funds in the mail without them having to file a claim or submit paperwork. Residents who receive a money match letter don't have to do anything. Unclaimed property will arrive in the form of a check approximately 45 days after the letters are received. There are millions of dollars in unclaimed property in the state, and this first batch of letters includes 8,366 claims totaling more than $2 million worth of unclaimed unclaimed property. Brian Query, Family Life News.
Thank you very much, Brian. Well, today's Family News feature offers a preview of a series of upcoming marriage enhancement weekends. Here's some of Noon Report anchor Bob Price's conversation with a man and wife who minister to marriages.
We are speaking today to Tony and Vanita Mitchell. They will be speaking at the Weekend to Remember seminar at the Hyatt Regency Hotel, Buffalo, New York, March 21st to 23rd. I'd be very curious, Tony, just to get your guys' story as how you guys found yourself in the boat you're in now, ministering to marriages.
Well, we were focused on marriage at our local church, and this was somewhere around 18 years ago, and our pastor is actually on the speaker team, so they were looking to expand the speaker team to have more speakers, and he nominated us. And we went through the process, and now we just love ministering to couples. We minister to couples in our local church, in our living room, and on stage. We're overjoyed to be able to meet people in different cities.
Well, our passion also comes from our mess. We have a lot of mess.
Yeah,
so
that's awesome. And people can relate to that. I'll be very curious. I'd love to get both your thoughts on this question. I'll start with you, Vanita. What's the best marriage advice you've ever gotten?
Well, I'm the type of person who I've got my hands on my holster. You know, I'm ready to come at you with two pistols. And so someone just said, relax and take your hands off your guns. So just be humble and enjoy your spouse.
Tony, what's the best marriage advice you've ever gotten?
Best marriage advice was never quit. And it came at a difficult time in our own marriage. As Vanita said, we have our own mess. And to not quit, because on the other side of whatever difficulty or differences we're going through is another level of enjoyment in your marriage that you would not see if you quit too early.
How many of these Weekend to Remember conferences have you guys done?
Oh, my. We've done them for about 18 years and maybe around 7 to 10 per year.
Wow.
So, so we've done a lot.
What's your favorite part? And then I'll let you go after this. What's your favorite part of the entire weekend?
Well, for me, it's on the last day as we are departing, just the smiles and the faces and the way that marriages have changed from Friday night. Just seeing that satisfaction of people saying, we have hope now.
You won't regret it. It is the best investment you'll ever make. Tony, I'll end with you.
And mine is that also, seeing the change in people. I also enjoy that as men, we don't get together very much and just hang out with men as men. And on Sunday morning, there is a breakout session where all the men are together in the ballroom and the ladies are not there. And we get to just enjoy time together as men with men. And that's my favorite part of the weekend.
Vanita Mitchell and her husband, Tony, presenters for the Weekend to Remember Marriage Retreat. You can hear the full interview on the Special Features tab at FamilyLife.org. Our podcast page also links you to schedule information about the retreat at Hershey, Pennsylvania in February and Buffalo, New York in March. Up next, your nightly market report brought to you by Faithward Advisors. Stocks closing on a higher note today after a volatile day on Wall Street. Investors reacted to several earnings reports, including those from Meta Platforms, Tesla, and Microsoft. Wall Street also looked at fourth quarter GDP growth that missed expectations, coming in at just 2.3%. At the closing bell, the Dow Jones Industrial Average gained 168 points to 44,882. The S&P 500 rose 31 points to 6071, and the Nasdaq gained 49 points to 19,680. Faithward Advisors, a Christian financial planning firm helping faithful stewards do more. Details are available at faithwardadvisors.com. This is the 5 o'clock report on Family Life.
I'm Rob West with your Faith and Finance Minute and a crash course on money. First, prepare for the inevitable. Have an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months living expenses. Emergencies will always crop up. Proverbs 22:3 tells us, the prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. Next, get 2 or 3 loan offers when financing a home and keep your monthly payment to 25% or less of your take-home pay. Otherwise, you'll have trouble staying on budget. And finally, stop putting off saving for retirement, thinking that you'll have more money available to invest in the years ahead. Proverbs 27:1 teaches, do not boast about tomorrow, for you do not know what a day may bring. Get biblical answers to your financial questions in the Faith Fi community. Download Faith Fi, Faith and Finance in your app store or visit faithfi.com.
Still to come on the 5 o'clock report, some stiff competition for old Phil.
The world's most famous groundhog weatherman, Punxsutawney Phil.
on the evening weather map, a mix of rain, ice, and snow late tonight and tomorrow. Much colder air will follow as we start the weekend. The call for tonight, clouds gather. Rain with pockets of freezing rain and sleet will spread late tonight across portions of Pennsylvania. Low temperatures early in the 20s and low 30s, temperatures steady or rising overnight. Tomorrow, it's rain, ice, and snow with high temperatures in the 30s and low 40s, and that precipitation tapers tomorrow night. Best chance for snow and sleet accumulations tomorrow night will be near and north of Interstate 90, the throughway. Best chance of a little iciness will be across the southern Finger Lakes and central and eastern Twin Tiers.
Thank you very much, Kevin. Finally at 5.
Don't mess with me, pork chop. What day is this?
Groundhog Day.
Well, that's Saturday, of course. Big weekend coming up for the fine folks in Punxsutawney, PA. Phil has spawned plenty of imitators over the years, and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration is throwing some shade Phil's way.
According to NOAA, Phil didn't crack the top 10. The most accurate groundhog apparently is Staten Island's Chuck. I didn't even know they had one. He correctly predicts the weather 85% of the time. Other accurate groundhogs are from Georgia, Illinois, and West Virginia. The most famous groundhog of all, Punxsutawney Phil, correctly predicts the weather only 35% of the time.
Adding further insult, 3 taxidermy groundhogs and a prairie dog statue finished ahead of Phil. Among other revered rodents, Chautauqua County, New York's Dunkirk Dave placed 12th. Maybe Kevin Williams can give him some pointers. That's the world we live in for Thursday, January 30th, 2025. Thank you again for joining us. I'm Mark Webster, Family Life News.